Denny, happy holidays to you as well. Welcome to a place that you know all too well. What do you think of the park out here, the debut today?
Well, I tell you what, I didn't mind leaving 78-degree weather in South Florida to come up here because of this special event. I've known about this for some time. The owner, Scott Malkin, said that he had a chance to get this property between Belmont Park and the arena, and it's amazing what they've done with it.
Oh, it's so nice, right?
Yeah,
And just to think, I mean, from your time here, great memories, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like this is like new age stuff, right? Like even across the league, like this is how you're supposed to do it here.
I think so, because it affects everybody, and it's a place where you can come even if it's not a hockey game. And the fact is, you know, I kind of thought maybe somebody would say, well, Denny, we got a pair of skates for you. Let's get out there a little bit. But thankfully, nobody said that.
I saw some rentals. I saw some rentals back there. If you want to light some up. A couple of old school Coho sticks as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, knowing you a long time, I know how much this means to you. Yes, you're a Floridian now, but you're still a New Yorker. You're a legend. You're an icon here.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you emotionally every time you're back here?
You know, it could bring me back to 1973 September when I was drafted that summer and I first stepped on Long Island. I don't think anybody really appreciated what Long Island was back then. It was someplace outside of New York City. But, you know, even Al Arbor, when he first came in '73, he said he couldn't believe what was here. And the fan base grew so quickly. Thankfully, we had some great playoffs against the Rangers, and 1975 was one of the breakout years for the Islanders, and it's been wonderful ever since. The memories are always there. I just love coming back, and the Islanders are really treating us, the alumni, very well. So I'm here probably once a month.
Awesome.
They treat the fans pretty well right now, too, with a couple of wins, second in the Metropolitan Division right now. What do you make of the way the team is constructed this year and the way they're excelling to at least start the first quarter of this season?
Well, you know, we knew that the Islanders, the current Islanders, are going to be a good defensive team. There was a concern, you know, maybe last year and coming into this year about their scoring. But I think now things are starting to shape up a little bit. They're looking good. They're in a very good place in the standings at the moment. I just expect that, especially when you got a defenseman, you know, like Noah Dobson, who puts up some points,
there
right?
He is. There
oh,
he is.
Yeah, and that is going to be a big asset. But I think they've got the tools. And certainly they got the support from the Long Island fans.
They got a heck of a goaltending tandem as well, and they're very good in that aspect. You know what? It was funny. I was walking around the guts of the arena. They do such a good job of capturing everything. I get lost in the hallway looking at some of the old pictures and incredible photos. Like, do you have any favorite ones that stand out to you?
You know, the one thing that I know exactly what you're talking about because I did the same thing, you know, last year. I thought the murals were outstanding. You know, they have a lot of great photos. Of course, they have the plaques of all of the old-time guys, the Hall of Famers at the entrance. And I thought when I first came in, I said, am I in a major law office here? Or like, you know, with the teak and the wood everywhere. My favorite place, it's not going to happen, but if I were 25, would be in that dressing room.
Oh, I love it. Listen, we all love the Collie. We love playing at the Collie.
Yeah,
if I say that any louder, some of these fans are going to rush the set. We love playing at the Coliseum, and of course, you guys are legends and a part of that legendary team there. But based on the strength and the history and what you accomplished there, to now see this version of where you are in the history with the UBS Arena, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's absolutely world class.
We had a couple of advantages in that nobody expected very much from us. So sometimes, you know, that's a disadvantage if you let it get that. But as Al Arbor would always say, and he'd say that to me all the time when I went into Madison Square Garden, he'd say, Dennis, turn a negative into a positive. It's all energy. And I think that's what happened to us in the early years. And while we're off camera, I mentioned 1975. When we beat the Rangers in the playoffs in 1975, that really elevated the Coliseum and everybody in Long Island.
Awesome.
You mentioned Noah Dobson earlier, and we've got a lot of great young offensive defensemen just taking this league by storm right now. Is there one guy that you find yourself going, yeah, I love watching him, and yeah, I see a little bit of myself in the way he plays?
Well, I think there's a bit of physical aspect that is not in any of the guys that we see today who have incredible skating ability. I think, you know, probably what I see, Noah Dobson's a little bit different, a little bit bigger, taller, but in a lot of the cases, when you look at some of those wonderful defensemen, their skating ability is beyond compare. That's where we really missed it. And, you know, back in the day, we had Bobby Orr, and we had a couple of other guys, Paul Coffey, obviously, later on. But that's where I see that wonderful ability really taking hold, because when I was broadcasting in Ottawa, I used to tell Eric Carlson, take a couple of steps and then move the puck. And because it opens everything up, isn't it? For the forwards as well as the defenseman moving up. And of course, his skating ability made him a Norris Trophy winner.
3 times too.
Yeah.
Like this guy, he does it different. Gil McCarr is kind of. These guys kind of, I guess, reinvent the position in a different way in some regards. I want to ask you this though. It's every time when we get to talk to the Hall of Famers or just the players before us, I love the stories, the story time. And it seems like everybody's a great storyteller. So I'm just curious, because when we were playing, there's certain guys, every team had to keep the mood light. I'm just picturing back then, it was like, did everybody keep the mood light, or was there certain guys when you play? Were you that guy? Who was the guy on the team that was like keeping it light through a long season?
Clark Gillies.
Wow,
you know, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Clarky was really a leader, one amongst 6 or 7 in the dressing room. You know, you had Trotch, and you had Boss, and you had Billy Smith, and you had, you know, Bobby Nye in his own way. I mean, what Bobby Nye did, you know, in the 1980 Stanley Cup Finals, you know, people don't always look at that, but he only played about 9 minutes in the whole game. He had 2 fights. He had, you know, we're playing against the Flyers, so he had a misconduct, and then he scores the game-winning goal. So I think that in our dressing room, your question, I'm addressing it. Clark Gillies was a guy that kept us loose, and you know, before that, Butch Goring, my brother, who was also there earlier. So we had a dressing room of a good mix, excellent mix.
Let's kind of double down on the dressing room, right? Because I was very fortunate to be around yourself and the great Billy Smith and, of course, the late Mr. Torrey. And there was a lot of that influence in the early years with the Florida Panthers. What is it about that culture that you guys cultivated here on Long Island that made that so special to ultimately lead to a legacy?
Well, you know, it wasn't exactly the same words you would have used in the early days of the Islanders, but you were there when the Florida Panthers started, as I was in broadcasting, and the players would call themselves cast-offs, and they actually were. But that brought them together, and my gosh, they went right to the Stanley Cup Finals. So that was a series of feel-good things that were going on in the dressing room, because that's where the game starts, right? Guys, you got to be ready. Talk about what we did. There was a long suffering period. You know, the late 70s, we were humiliated. Best team in the NHL in 78. Toronto beats us. Best team in the NHL in 79. The Rangers beat us. That hurt a lot. But, you know, those sad stories were able to bring him into something that made everything much more positive. And, of course, the dominance of the following 4 years.
Unreal, man. I just let me do a quick follow-up on that. You're the best, biggest, baddest team in the world. Like, everybody's getting juiced up for the Islanders. Like, Gretz, I talked to Gretz about this in Florida during the Stanley Cup Final. It's like, we knew we were good. We knew we had players, but unless and until we could get through the Islanders, we couldn't do it. We had to get through you guys. So what did that feel like, being on a member and a superstar and on the best team at the time on the planet? You know,
I thank you for the compliments, because the team thing was really led by our general manager and our coach. In all of the years, 13 years in a row, leading up to the great years, Bill Torrey was making trades, he was drafting players, and Al Arbor was molding every one of us. You're not going to see that anymore. And I think that played a big part in all of us being able to get on the ice, Al looking at us and saying, you can give a little more. You can give a little more. And he was such a great coach. I think that's where it all started, you know, very strong management.
We always talk about look good, feel good, play good. You look great, but you've got the socks on down below. They kick them out. How's the sock business going?
Well, I talked to my accountant today, and I'm going to be paying a lot of taxes this year, so obviously they've been going very well. And I think we're going to keep it going with the help of the Islanders. It'd be great.
Awesome stuff.
Where do we get the Potvin socks?
They'll be right here. You can get them online. They have them here in the lab store. So let's go ahead and get a run on those beautiful socks.
They're beautiful. I'm looking for a size 12 and a half.
12 and a half.
I can't see them on there, but we know a guy.
we know a guy, and that guy's wearing them now, and I can tell you the softness and the support you get. in the lower part of the foot, where we all of us old people,
For sure.
need a lot of support. It's got it all.
Made with the finest materials.
Yeah, exactly. exactly.
Cashmere. Well, Denny, we appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy the experience
Awesome,
out here
man.
at UBS in the park. We appreciate you stopping by for a couple of minutes.
Thank you very much. It's
Thanks
fun
so
to hear
much.
you guys. I listen to you guys quite a bit, so keep up the good work.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you
Thanks
as
so much.
well.
Great seeing you.
Denny Potvin, the Hall of Famer, Islanders legend.